It's been a while, but View the Right Thing has awoken from its long slumber. And boy, does it have a fantastical story to tell. Journey with Wes and his brother and first-timer guest, David, as they delve into the epic quest of discussing Pixar's latest effort, Onward, a story of two brothers living in a world of long-forgotten magic, in a quest to bring back their deceased father for one special day. And now, make sure you clean up after your dragon, shoo away the unicorns from the trash, and get your takeout from manticores, because it's time for View the Right Thing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of View the Right Thing. It's been a really long time since we've done an episode. Today I have a new co-host that's helping me with this episode. It's my brother, who's in New York, David.
Hey, everyone.
How's it going, Dave?
It's going pretty well. It's, I don't have a lot to do right now with the situation in America. So this is a pleasant distraction from everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Or not going on.
Right now we're in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. And so we're all kind of staying inside. And so he's on one side of the country, I'm on the other, and we decided to watch some movies and we'll talk about them.
Is there a reason, is there a preference to why people say corona or COVID?
I have no idea.
Is there some sort of one is more intellectual or less stereotyping, or is there there's no rhyme or reason? Because I see certain publications say only COVID, and I can't quite figure out what the distinction is yet, but I feel like some people are intentionally choosing to use one or another, and I don't know why.
Okay, I'm not a doctor. I don't know for sure, but I think COVID-19 is the specific designation for this virus. Coronavirus is a type of virus. There can be different types of coronavirus, I think.
They're all related to SARS and MERS, aren't they?
I don't know. But I think
it's
COVID-19,
not really what this podcast is about, is it?
No, I think COVID-19 is a coronavirus. I usually just say coronavirus when I'm talking because it's easier to say, but when I type COVID-19 because it's faster.
All right. Well, I think this is an appropriate intro to a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah. So originally when we talked about doing this, we sort of pitched this as maybe something we could do the transcript and throw up on your blog, Newspaper. Do you want to talk about Newspaper and sort of what that is, how that kind of came to be?
Well,
why?
I don't know that it's really ever truly come to be. It's been created. It was really two things that I thought about when I decided to put something online. One was that I am now unemployed and wanted to keep busy, and that seemed like a productive thing to do. The other part was that people have said to me in the past, hey, why don't you write a blog about this? And I've always been very hesitant for two reasons. One is it seems strange to create something and then give it away for free. Although I think that's maybe more the reality of the universe today. And the second is that I don't know that, even though people said, hey, why don't you write a blog? I feel self-conscious about it, in that I don't know why my opinion would be important or who would want to read it. But I thought it would still be good for me to try and do something. And so I created this web page that has a few different segments to it. One of them is sort of things that I do in my normal life that I've added nothing to. There's another one that's about the wine industry, which I've added nothing to. And then a few other things that I've posted a couple of things on the blog. And probably the most used part of the site is what you've done, which is I thought, hey, Wes knows a lot about movies and is actually a pretty good writer and thoughtful. And it'd be cool if like I could make probably this blog more interesting with someone who had something useful to say. And so we incorporated a section called Movie Hippo, which is sort of your pen name for things about movies. And I thought, people are interested about what's good about a movie or what's new. It probably is even more relevant right now with the COVID/coronavirus, where people, like, I'm on Zoom conferences, daily with friends and stuff, and they all are talking about what they're watching and what they've liked. And so maybe this would be even more interesting now than it would before. So.
Yeah. So among the topics that you were talking about, I mean, would you say, as from my knowledge, it seems like if I ever have a wine question, not that I drink wine, but if I were to have a wine question, you're the person I go to right away. Do you feel like that's the sort of like the area of your expertise, the thing you know the most about?
For sure. I mean, it's the industry I've been in for most of my life, right? Since college, I was buying wine in restaurants, and it's people want to know more about wine. I think they've been confused about wine. I think generationally that's starting to change, but yes, I mean, people in the past have liked wine descriptions. I kind of personally hate wine descriptions, so I'm not real excited about giving them. But I can do it, and people seem to like it. Sometimes people want to know more about a specific kind of wine. And then sometimes people want to know about the industry in general. And there's just a lot of like, not through, I mean, sometimes it's through effort, but not necessarily through effort, more just living it. A lot of experience I have kind of piled up that could be shared.
Do you feel like when you talk to people about wine, like when people ask you questions or just have conversations with you, that people tend to be, really opinionated about it? Or do you think people are more seeking education about it?
I think wine people can be very opinionated about wine. I think people, and my opinion of, like, I don't know if it's my opinion or my understanding of the consumer has evolved a lot, particularly in the last 5 years. But I think that most people want to feel safe in their purchase and are intrigued by wine and don't want to have an overly intellectual conversation about it. And if you can make it accessible in the same way that you would make discussing a film or a book accessible, then people are happy to have those conversations, learn a little bit, and enjoy the consumption of that thing, whether it's a book, movie, or a glass of wine.
Right. That's kind of why I asked, because, obviously in film industry, everybody has an opinion. So whether they're, I guess, sort of like movie people or not, everybody sort of has an opinion about film.
That's why they say everyone in the film industry is an asshole. They also have one of those.
Right. Well,
so we have to filter that out. We didn't discuss language on the before we did this.
No, you can say whatever you want. No, it's listed as mature or explicit content on iTunes.
Oh, I am not mature.
Well, but you are explicit. So outside of newspaper and wine, what else are you into? Video games, I know that because we play video games together somewhat regularly.
Yeah, I like to play them. I'm not very good at them, but I like to play them.
Basketball. You're into basketball.
I love to play basketball, which is obviously not happening right now. I like to run. And I read, and I mean, there's actually a lot of things that, I mean, this whatever you call it, shelter in place or stay at home or whatever, is not been terrible for me. I like watching TV and movies and stuff, but in my daily life, I feel like I just don't have time to do it unless I'm on an airplane. So now I can watch more, and I can read more, and we can be at home and cook. We really like to cook and eat. So this is not like I think this is terrible for a lot of people. This has not been terrible for me.
Yeah. I've been looking at the photos you've been posting of the food, and I've been pretty jealous.
Well, sorry, I'm letting my dog in the room. Humphrey's just arrived.
All right, Humphrey.
Stephanie's a great cook, and so that's one of the things I think bonded early on in our dating life was she was always interested in cooking, and it's actually how I got into wine, right? Like I didn't know literally what to bring to the table. She would cook dinner, and that was great because we were young and couldn't afford to go out. And I thought, well, maybe I can learn about wine. And so I'd find out what she was cooking, and then I would I couldn't really. This is embarrassing, but you couldn't go to the internet and search what to have with it. You'd have to go to your wine store or buy a magazine and hope that there was something similar, and then you would buy a bottle of wine and take it home and have it for dinner. And so that's what I brought, and that's how I got into wine, really.
Yeah, that's funny you said that. I saw a post that was saying, we're really lucky that this pandemic thing didn't happen 18 years ago, because we'd all be
that would be, oh my God.
Yeah, we'd be on dial-up and
the first people
limited on how many texts we could send.
The first people, this is terrible to say, but I think the first people to jump off a bridge 25 years ago would have been parents. From the people we have not talked about this movie at all, but the people I feel like are having the hardest time with the isolation is actually, I think, the parents, number one, because it's so much time with kids. The public school system is such a luxury because they can, they have built-in daycare, and and then there's the additional stress of they're supposed to be teaching them something and all that. And I can't even imagine what that would have been like 25 years ago, where there were no iPads or things like that. And then single friends, I think, are having a little bit of a hard time with it. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we could talk about the movie, since we've talked about what's kept us inside, forcing us to watch movies. So, I guess the first question is basically did you enjoy the movie? And then we'll get into why or why not.
Well, not a lot. I didn't. It was okay. I think I didn't like it. I think the only reason I have interest in the movie is because we're doing this podcast, and it's made me thought more deeply about it than I would have otherwise. If I would have just shown up and watched that movie without there being any hey, let's think about what was the movie trying to say or whatever, because I don't always, right? Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But I don't know that I would have gone into this trying to think too deeply about it. And I think on the sort of surface level, I would have been this is the worst Pixar movie I've ever seen.
Oh no. Well, I like.
Well, you liked it, but what's the worst Pixar movie you've ever seen? This one.
I'm not in love with Brave.
But this is way high on so I'm not good at movie stuff, so I just looked, but I'm pretty sure Pixar is pretty good, and so you just Google popular Pixar movies and you go Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Inside Out, Nemo, WALL-E, Cars, Ratatouille, and Incredibles. I'm this show is nowhere near that. Any of those.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that big on some of the Toy Story sequels. I thought The Good Dinosaur was okay.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
I like it better
than right? This is nowhere in the league of those other movies.
No, I think it's going to be few and far between that we see those Pixar do something like those films again. I think those were really, really special, and they were also you think about Monsters, even WALL-E was still kind of considered one of the first Pixar films,
Great, right?
That was where they were sort of breaking. They were breaking new ground,
right? You think that you would? I don't know. I really wanted to the previews. I thought looked really good.
Yeah, Well, I think what I liked about the movie was I liked that it was a truly personal story. And I think and I sort of wondered, I watched it with Desiree, and I wondered if she really connected to it the way I connected to it, because, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to watch this with you, because it's about brothers and it's about having, lost your father and wishing that you could have another day with them. And I thought, well, if there was ever a Pixar movie that was probably written for David and I, it's probably this one.
So for anyone that is listening to this, Wesley and I are brothers, and our father died. Just backstory.
They if they've listened to I guess if they're new listeners, that's good. That's good info. But so I kind of wondered, how Desi received the film, and I sort of wonder that about other people. There's do you think that you didn't enjoy the film because it was sort of that fantasy realm, that sort of D&D fantasy realm?
No. I so from the perspective that you're talking about, like, did they deal with a serious subject matter, and did they do it in a good way? I think that was good, right? So if that was the goal of that movie, then that's fine. I think that there wasn't enough levity in it for me. Like, I want more comedy out of a Disney show, even if it's dealing with a serious matter. And I don't think the characters were like that. I mean, so first of all, there are very few characters, right? Which is a little bit unusual too, I think. Maybe minus Wally, but like, I think, I mean, there was that Griffin creature, whatever that was. There was the mom, there were the brothers. I mean, there just weren't that many. The cops. I don't know. There just weren't that many. And they just weren't like, I don't know. Like, it wasn't like that one thing was like a cool thing or whatever. Yeah. Like, I didn't love any of the characters. Like, I wanted to love more of the like peripheral characters more than just the main characters were fine.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's actually one of the reasons I really liked it, was because they kind of honed in on the relationship of the two brothers, right? They didn't spend, kind of, I think, to what you're saying, they didn't spend much time in exploring motivations by any other characters. Like, I think probably the thing that I think they could have expanded on was their stepfather, right? Like the mom's new guy, the cult. I felt like that wasn't really explored.
The Minotaur
guy. Yeah, the
Minotaur, whatever it is.
Yeah. I think to your point, I felt like that could have been explored a little bit more, but I think what I liked about it was that it was more kind of honed in on the two brothers.
I think that's good. I'm still fine. I don't know if that makes a good film. I feel like they missed the piece where they entertained me at the same time they developed this great relationship. Because I didn't feel, that's the thing, is I didn't feel entertained. So I can grant what you're saying, that's good character development, interesting story, but not particularly entertaining. Right? There's a lot of like really good books that are written in terms of like content and relationship, but just isn't that they're not that great to read.
Do you think that maybe it was too personal of a story? That maybe so the background of the movie is that the director Dan Scanlon, his father died when he was 1, and he had a brother who was a few years older than him. And he sort of grew up always sort of wondering, like, who is my
I wondered
dad?
if there was a personal connection for the person who wrote it.
Yeah. And so, this was all happening. This happened to him, this happened in the 70s. And so he sort of envisioned this idea that, like, what's a staple of the 70s? Well, like a van with a bitchin' painting on the side, right? So he took that, like, what would be on the painting of the side of this van, and what can we tell about that world? And so he took this sort of like, winged horse idea and kind of went this mythical route. And so I think it's very personal, and I guess that's why I asked the question, is maybe it's so personal that they're so invested in telling the story of, like, this director is so intent on telling the story of him and his brother that they didn't have time or room for other people or other characters.
Maybe I don't know. I just I don't know if I don't know if that's what caused it to be that. But I think if I just take a step back and say, is this really a complete movie? I don't think so. Like I think it's not worthy of what Pixar has done in the past. And I'm obviously not an expert. This is from you're an expert. Like I am like a consumer, and I think it's not worthy of because I think Pixar has made a poignant film that is entertaining along the way, and I didn't find this that entertaining along the way.
You know what movie I liked as a film better from Pixar, but I actually think this is a more complete story. I loved Up.
I liked Up a lot too, yeah.
But I think like, as far as like having sort of a message and sort of like coming full circle, like maybe. I felt like
Up love things like kind of I get that.
One of the things that I loved about the movie is, like, you sort of, when you've lost somebody, you sort of like ask that question, like, what would I give up if I could have more time or whatever, and then if you had that time, what would you do? Is sort of the question, right? And something I loved about this movie was that this character had this list of all of these things that he would want to do, and they're all like the most like they're all mundane, right? They're all normal. They're not. None of them are like go on an epic adventure or go to the fair or anything crazy. They're like play catch and ask questions.
Go ahead, finish your thought here.
And I just think I think there's something to be said that, like, when you have hindsight, the things that you remember the most are like the most mundane, right? Like making dinner with dad or whatever, right? Or for us it was Christmas morning. We would always make matzah with dad, or our version of it. That's a pretty
slightly disagree with you, just slightly. I think it's just slightly. Sure, I think I don't think they were from the movie anyway. My take was that they weren't mundane, but that this person had someone else in their life that gave them those experiences. The experiences never became mundane. The idea of who provided them was transferred to his brother. And so became not mundane at all. They became incredibly meaningful. And I think that's what the character learned, was that learning to drive is maybe mundane, but whether it was that his father time or it was this other person that took the place of his father was incredibly meaningful to him. And so I don't know.
I think we're kind of agreeing on the same thing. I think, like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, the individual acts in themselves are mundane. It's I don't know, of all the things that you could think of to do, normal things were the things that he chose. I
also think that like in that you have to. Yes, I agree. I mean, you and I, especially at this age, like, these are all mundane things. I think when you're a 15-year-old, they're incredibly important.
Yeah. No, and I'm just saying, I'm talking about, like, from a hindsight perspective. I'm not talking, like, and I think that's one of the things that I really thought was kind of, the movie could have chosen to do something different, but as they wrote the film, or as the director chose to tell the story, he chose to make sure, like, the things that you remember are those kinds of things.
Yeah.
you know, and I thought there's some like real beauty and sort of like the magic.
No, and I think to that
itself.
point, I think if I really choose to delve into this movie, I think there's good stuff about it. I think there's lots of worthwhile things to think about. If I just take it as I watched the movie, I'm not sure I would have liked it. If I want to like dig into it because we're doing this podcast, I think there's a lot for us to talk about. Weirdly, I have to stop for like 15 seconds and let the dog out of the room because he's trying to get out of the room.
Yeah. No, go ahead. This happens a lot in the podcast. Somebody will come in the room, and I'll tell Steve's my normal co-host, and I'll just say, "Vamp for 10 seconds while I go get it, get the dog out or whatever." So it's pretty normal. I don't know that you can hear me, but I'll keep.
Well, no, it's great. So because at the same time I can give myself more wine, so it's great. Everything worked out. Okay. So let me ask you this, and then we go back to more serious stuff at the end of this. Are there famous people in this?
I mean, Chris Pratt.
Wait. You have to. So all right. So let's explain. I don't know who anyone is, even if I physically see them.
Okay.
Right. Like I don't pay attention to it, and it makes me a bad consumer of someone else's art. Right. Like I should appreciate them and know them and recognize them, and I don't remember who they are, and I don't remember what they've been in. Chris Pratt, I think, was in Star Trek, right?
Chris Pratt. No, that's
damn it.
Chris Pine. So Chris.
Who's Chris Pratt?
Okay, so Chris Pratt is Star-Lord in the Star-Lord in the Marvel movies. Okay, and Tom Holland, the guy that played his younger brother, is Spider-Man in the.
It's all Marvel.
No, it's just those two guys just happen to be cast together.
Does Disney own Marvel?
I mean, at this point, like, who hasn't been in a Marvel movie? You know,
I have
like,
not
like there's so many people connected.
I have not been in a Marvel movie.
I mean, okay, you're not.
But I have amazingly good looks.
Sure.
Wait, is Disney owned? Or does Disney own Marvel? Aha.
Yes. They own Marvel. They own Lucas.
They own ESPN too.
Wars.
I thought so. Yeah. Something just happened, like when I went in. Oh, by the way, well, okay, let's finish this bit. All right, so Chris Pine is in this. Which Chris is?
No, Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt is in this. Chris Pine is.
I really like Chris Pine.
I like Chris Pine too. I like Chris.
But wouldn't you prefer it to be Chris Pine?
No, not necessarily. He was.
Which one was Chris Pratt?
Movies. Chris Pratt was on the show.
No. Which one was he in the movie?
He's the brother Bart.
Okay, yeah. And then who was? I don't even know the main character's name, honestly. Yeah, who is he?
Ian? That's Tom Holland. That's
Spider-Man. Oh, because I was like, how did they make him sound like such a little kid? But then that makes sense now.
Yeah, and then the mom was Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh, okay.
And the Manticore was Octavia Spencer.
Ah, all right. I mean, I assume there must be famous people in it, but I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Tracy Ullman had a small part in it, and I actually really liked her part. She was the pawn shop.
Oh, yeah, she was good. Yeah. She reminded me a little bit of the character in Monsters, Inc. that, when he's like, where's your paperwork?
Oh, yeah, Roz.
So I think that. All right. So what do you think the funniest bit of that show was?
Of Onward, the funniest bit of Onward. That's a really good question because it's tough because what really stuck to me, because I like such schmaltzy things, and I like a good cry. That's the stuff that the emotional stuff is the stuff that really sticks out to me. I like some of the stuff in the Manticore Tavern. I liked some of that just because there was lots of like hidden things in the background. As a video gamer, I got a big kick out of somebody playing Prance Revolution. instead of Dance Dance Revolution. I liked that the claw machine was the
that was good.
gauntlet.
That was good.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff in there in that.
So
that
I'm even more baseline humor than that. Like that's like you're looking for like clever humor, and for me, the stuff I thought was really funny was with the legs. I thought the legs made me laugh. That was the only thing that made me laugh in that movie, honestly, for the most part. I mean, the other stuff that was like cute and clever, but the only thing that really made me laugh were the legs. And I said that to Stephanie, and she says it was a little bit like Weekend at Bernie's, right? And I don't know if I've ever actually seen that film, but I've seen bits of it or whatever. And I think she might be right. But there was just a lot of like quasi slapstick stuff. Even when they were dancing, and it's like, I don't know what the top half would look like, and he put his top half on there. I like that. I thought that stuff was like because it was constant throughout the movie. It was the only. You're right. There's so much like relationship building or exposition or seriousness overall. But the only comedy relief that was with them throughout the entire thing were these legs and the fucking like being pulled over by the cops and like spilling out of the car like a drunk was hysterical.
Yeah. I like that too.
So I didn't think the movie was that great or that funny. I'm going to play this for you because this is something I'm doing now. I started in January. I'm not very good at it, but I actually thought the movie was better this way. You ready?
Yeah.
Elevus levitar. Ahí no sale este hechizo de levitación. ¿Y si pruebo otro diferente como rayos arcanos? Sí, un mago nivel 1 aprenderá el hechizo más difícil del libro. Vamos a seguir con los sencillos. Sí, pues no
At this point, they're in the van trying to lift up a can of soda.
Que si esperas que funcione, tú debes avivar tu llama interior. ¿Qué? Tu llama interior. Debes hablar con pasión. No te limites. Elevus levitar. No, así. Elevus levitar. ¡Elevus levitar! ¡No! ¡Aviva tu llama interior! ¡Elevus levitar! ¡No te limites! ¡Elevus levitar! ¡Tu llama interior!
Anyway, I thought, like, if you really want to enjoy this movie, I think maybe Spanish is the way to go.
Interesting.
And so you go to, if you have Disney Plus, you can go to Disney Plus and you can change to Spanish and you can put subtitles on it. And I thought that was really some great acting. I mean, Chris Pratt may disagree. Or Chris Pine.
Yeah, maybe.
Chris Pine might like it better. Is this going badly?
No, it's not going badly. I'm just thinking about how many Chris. You keep saying Chris, and I keep thinking about how many Chris's there are in the Marvel universe. And Chris Pine is in the DC universe. By the way, he's in the Wonder Woman movies.
No wonder he's not in this. Then.
Yeah.
He was great as Captain Kirk.
He was great as Captain Kirk. I hope that he comes back and does another one, but we'll see. Quentin Tarantino split it.
Here are the last two questions, I think. Unless you have another one. I don't want to.
No. I'm a little bit, and my style on the podcast is more just as questions come up or just talk about sort of the things that affected you. I'm good.
Right, so so how much do you impose yourself on this movie? Do you see yourself as one of the two brothers between us?
It's funny. I do a little bit. Even though I'm the younger brother, I think I'm more of the barley of the.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, I think there's a lot that. Well, so there's a bunch. I think that first of all, your whether it's your D&D games or whatever, like you know, sort of the mystical like specific instructions you have to follow and what it means. So there's that.
Sure.
I also think that you have a belief in what could be versus my pessimism. And I think that there's a lot of things that that you've certainly shown me are work out to be true that I wouldn't necessarily believe to be, and so I think that's for sure. I actually thought the same thing.
Yeah. Well, why do you feel like you're more like?
I don't know that I think I'm as much like I thought there was a lot of stuff that was like you in Barley. I don't know why I think I'm like Ian. I don't necessarily know that I think I'm like Ian as much as I think that you're more like Barley than I would be. How about you?
Well, I mean, I definitely think that they're. I mean, just oh boy, how deep or like traumatic do we want to go into it? Like I throughout life, I mean, we all do, but I always feel like I've made a lot of mistakes, and I always felt like you kind of had things together, that you were like really well put together, and that you like thought things through really well. I mean, I definitely remember plenty of like, you know, dumb things you did too, but but you know, like, you know, you always like you did a good job in school. You helped me, you know, graduate when I almost didn't graduate from high school, and you always just seemed like really, really well put together and like thought out. And that's kind of like how I view Ian, right? Is like, yeah, that's what makes a good odd couple. Like if you have somebody who's like a little bit of a screw up and is willing to believe in flights of fancy, then you've got to have somebody who's more grounded. And that's
that might be more,
you.
You know, smoke and mirrors than yeah. But all right, so on the more serious bit of this, I will say I think that the part of this movie that was very good, that I liked the most, was sort of so just on, you know, on a personal note about our father, like I try and stay away from cliches as much as possible. I hate them. I really hate them. I hate cliches. I hate things everyone says. And I don't think I came to terms with this until Dad died. This cliche of like, someone is always with you. And I think that the movie had a bit of that. You know, I don't know if it was quite as obtuse as I'm saying it now, but I think, you know, they were saying it through the brother, you know, you have access to your father sort of thing. And but I think that I was thinking about this day. I want to run today. I was thinking about it, and I think about this a lot. And I don't know if I believe in it. I think maybe I believe in all of it. I think some people believe that somewhere in the ether, a lost person is still with you, right? That their soul. I don't know how to stop this thing from being. That a lost soul is around you, right? That their souls exist in the universe, and that's a little bit for me. It's a little hard for me, but I don't necessarily deny it, because I feel like since Dad's gone, I do feel something, and I don't know if that's again because he's out there in the ether, or it's just me wanting to feel it. I do think that there is this idea of whatever, things come and go in life, right? And that's like the universe gives you whatever time you have here, and who you are is made up of the things that you encounter. And Dad was a thing that I encountered very intimately for a period of my life. and it's made who I am, so it can never go away. And so I think, this is probably way beyond what the movie did, but it certainly like brought up all of these issues and things, right? So I think that's not, but I don't think it's too far away, right? It's like there's this like inkling of a thing. It's not the full person that emerged, right? It was half the person. It was like an inkling of a thing. And and it didn't have to be the actual thing because whoever made up his older brother that taught him how to drive and stuff was somehow informed by the relationship that he had with his father. And so, by proxy, some transitive, process, had access to his father. And so this person lives on through other people or through what's missing or whatever. So I thought, I don't know, that's very inarticulately said, but like it was like stuff that I thought like was stirred up in me. And I do think that that's what you were saying, a good part of the movie, right? It dealt with a very serious issue, and it did it in a pretty good way. I still don't think it was a very good movie.
So let me ask you, I mean, we should wrap up here shortly, but since we're talking about some of the heavier stuff, was there a moment in the movie when they were dealing with like sort of like loss or their grief that you connected with, that you were sort of like, I remember this? Like, for example, for me, it was actually really early in the film when he puts the cassette tape in the boombox to listen to his father talk. I remember really vividly after Dad had died. I was still living in Seattle, and I had this like realization that I couldn't remember what Dad sounded like, and I like panicked, and I tore my bedroom apart looking for that last Christmas that we spent with them. We recorded a ton of stuff, and I just was just tore the room apart looking for the tape of Christmas so I could hear what his voice sounded like. And that really, like, that moment of him like listening to that cassette tape really connected with me. Was there anything in the movie like that for you? And it's okay if there wasn't.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think it was the same. I mean, obviously, you have to, and I think most people do. I have thought about it a lot, and I don't think anything is quite the same for me. But it's for anyone that's listening. It's it is. I mean. And I don't know, maybe I'm curious if it's different. Like, who knows how long Mom's going to live? Hey, Mom. But
Hi.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be different if Mom would be 100, right? If we're going to feel very differently about it or not. It seems more tragic and sad, when you die younger. But anyway, I don't know. I just have really. Yeah, there was nothing there. I mean, it's weird because this guy died young too, but there was nothing there that like reminded me of what I went through when Dad died. But I will say that when you lose, anyone that's listening, when you lose a parent, I think. I mean, I don't know what it's like to lose a child, right? So I can't comment on that. When you lose a parent, it leaves a hole. That just doesn't get it. Your ability to deal with it changes over time, but it never gets filled.
Yeah. I heard this analogy once that like losing someone in grief is sort of like, especially when they're close to you, is sort of like being in a shipwreck, and so like the ship sinks and you're just like pounded by all of these waves, and eventually the waves get farther and farther apart, and so that's sort of grief washing over you, and eventually that grief, like, you learn to deal with it, and it starts to feel like it gets further and further apart. The waves get further and further apart from each other, and that's kind of like kind of how it is, right? Like
It
this
does.
thing drops
You
out
get
from
better
underneath
dealing
you,
with it,
and then
but I I don't. Yes, like I've moved on, and I do different things with my Sunday nights,
Sure.
but I still very much would like to call and talk to him.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
way to go, Disney. Way to go, Disney.
Right. We did it.
Great fucking movie, Disney.
Well, I mean, they have a pretty strong history of of killing off parents.
I think it was a below average Pixar movie.
All right, I enjoyed it. I thought it was probably more in the average range. I liked it.
It's
more
no Monsters Inc.
Pixar films. Well, not much as Monsters Inc. I think Monsters Inc. is the pinnacle of
it was
Pixar.
good. The Incredibles was very good.
Incredibles is good. Toy Story's good.
Did you think we were going to be able to talk about this movie for 50 minutes? Did you think we'd be able to talk about this movie for 50 minutes? I did not. I was like, wow, this is going to be like a 15-minute conversation.
Well, because it's not just about the movie. It's sort of about us and the takeaways that we got from it, and sort of how that affects us personally. That's one of the things I love about film, is that there's all these different arts involved. It's music, and it's visual, it's photography, and
so did you think that cartoons were the do you think that I call them cartoons? That's probably not the right term anymore. But like, did you think that the animation was like just? Was there anything new or good about that?
No, I didn't feel like they took a step forward in animation or anything. It's not like, when Toy Story came on the scene and we hadn't really seen anything like it before, or even like WALL-E, or even Monsters Inc. If you think about like the fur on Sully, and how like each individual like hair is like the stars in WALL-E and stuff, that nothing struck me as particularly innovative about the technique of the animation, but I thought the story was really personal, and I would rather watch a story that comes from like a very deep personal space than a story that's just like just rote.
So so how do we do? What do you think? Yeah,
on the podcast. Yeah, we did great.
And so, what are you thinking that we should watch next?
Well, I was going to leave that up to you.
You should pick a movie, and I'll pick the next one.
Do you want me to pick a movie?
Yeah,
okay,
I mean, I think everyone is
now,
probably,
tell you later.
Even though we're on the verge of an hour, on the edge of their seat to know what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah. So if you still haven't seen it, because we talked about it recently, Clue.
I feel like that's an old movie, isn't it?
Yeah, we were talking about it like a few months ago, and you said you've never seen it, and I told you the cast, and you were like, "How could that cast be so
Maybe
good?"
I didn't see it.
Let's watch it. I
did watch the other movie
because I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'd like to kind of like.
For me, I think it sounds like Clue. Did you see Knives Out, or what is that? Knives Out was
I did. I love
spectacular. Knives Out.
Yeah.
Pissed
I mean,
Onward.
Knives Out is way better than Clue. As far as like a film and a complete story, I think Knives Out is a much better movie than Clue. But Clue is like a silly, fun '80s movie that I feel like if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. If you can't remember if you've seen it, you probably should watch it again.
All right,
All right.